Nickelodeon was kid everything.
We were there to have fun, to get slimed, to be entertained.
This is when Dan Schneider arrives. He launched the careers of child actors who became major stars.
For 20 years, he shaped children's entertainment and culture. But that marked one of the darkest chapters.
My name is Madison Dunn, and today we will be diving into an important and eye-opening documentary, Quiet on Set, directed by Mary Robertson and Emma Schwartz. This documentary focuses on the horrible abuse and mistreatment that many child actors endured while working on Nickelodeon shows in the early 2000s.
Working for Dan was like being in an abusive relationship.
Gender discrimination, hostile work environment, harassment.
How safe can any kids be in that environment?
Quiet on Set is a documentary that brings to light the disturbing experiences of former childhood actors who starred in popular Nickelodeon shows that most of us grew up watching and loved as children. Some of these shows include The Amanda Show, iCarly, Drake and Josh, and Zoe 101. This documentary features interviews with several former actors who have openly discussed and shed light on the manipulation and abuse in the industry that they were supposed to trust and be protected by. Quiet on Set shows us the behind the scenes of the pressure that was being put on childhood actors. From working long hours, being emotionally and physically abused, and being sexually harassed are all things that have been systematically swept under the rug by the industry. The shows themselves were full of laughter, jokes, and fun, but viewers didn't see the hidden cost of fame for these young actors.
There would be even bigger problems down the line with actual pedophiles on set who worked at Nickelodeon, all in a short amount of time.
It was a toxic environment. It made me trust people less.
We were there for so many hours. You get comfortable with people until you're not.
We found Ziploc bags, each one with a girl's name on it.
11 charges of child sexual abuse related to a child actor.
It wasn't dealing with anybody on the shows or anything, right?
It was a child actor.
On one of our shows.
Yes.
The documentary covers a lot of key points about what was going on in the industry. First off, the documentary focuses on the unequal balance of power in the industry. The child actors had little say about what happened on set and were often forced into situations they were uncomfortable with.
Very weird.
There are all these setups that reference like squirting goo on Jamie Lynn's face when she's just 13 years old.
Feel these kids' feet. Wow, they're really soft.
People were looking back at old scenes and saying, Dan Schneider is obsessed with feet.
A lot of actors that were interviewed for the documentary talked about how they were pressured into doing things they didn't want to, like filming inappropriate scenes or staying on set for hours past what should have been acceptable for someone of their age.
Overtime in ways that were sort of pushing the envelope.
They would be like, hey, can you stay an extra however long? I guess, sure. And you kind of look at your mom like, we're ignoring child labor laws again. Do you know? All right. Let's shoot.
Lastly, the documentary shows how Nickelodeon and the industry as a whole failed to protect these child actors. As viewers, we only saw the characters they played on screen, characters that were having fun and living their best lives, but behind the scenes, the actors were often dealing with the polar opposite. These actors were children who were struggling with the pressure of fame while being treated like property and having to do things against their will while not being treated like people with real feelings.
Docuseries Quiet on Set. Bell shocked fans and the industry when he opened up about being sexually abused starting at just 14 years old by an on-set dialogue coach.
Quiet on Set, Bell opens up publicly for the first time about being repeatedly sexually assaulted as a teenager by a dialogue coach, Brian Peck, who worked with Bell at Nickelodeon in the early 2000s.
This documentary has impacted culture by changing the way that we see our childhood shows and childhood fame in general. For a lot of us who grew up watching Nickelodeon, many of us wanted to be in the position of these actors because they seemed like they were living the dream from an outside perspective. It seems like they had everything, fame, money, and millions of fans that adored them. But Quiet on Set shows us the reality of being a childhood star and shows that there is a much darker side than we have ever known.
I'm reprocessing a lot of what the experience was like. The environment needs to be made safer if kids are going to be acting. I think there should be therapists. I think there should be parents allowed to be wherever they want to be, dealing with some of the things that the survivors who've come forward, and there's not a word for how devastating that is to hear about.
The documentary also gives us a deeper look at the entertainment industry as a whole and how these kids were being treated like property and not people. These kids were exploited, abused, and manipulated, and it's scary to think how many childhood stars probably went through the same situations but have not been able to speak up about them.
Did that air on Nickelodeon?
On! Give up the juice! Yikes. I'm thirsty!
In another video, Ariana is pouring water on herself in what seems like a very sexual manner. And people started saying, this feels inappropriate for children.
Even on a more general level, the cultural impact of this documentary extends beyond just Nickelodeon and the entertainment industry, but shows how we need to protect children in all industries, because it's not just Hollywood or Nickelodeon, but Quiet on Set highlights the need for better child labor laws and more support for children's mental health. This documentary has made society more aware that we've been overlooking the overall well-being of child stars for too long, and some things need to be changed.
With an incredibly emotionally abusive producer.
I did not feel safe around Dan Schneider while I was working at Nickelodeon.
I didn't feel safe to say, this hurt me.
The bad just doesn't go away. The bad stays for a lifetime.
All of this information has made us wonder what was happening behind the scenes.
So now the question is, what can we do with this information, and how can we make sure that something like this does not happen again? First, we could start by demanding accountability from networks, studios, producers, and directors. When a child is brought into work at such a young age, industries should care about their well-being and not just profiting off of them. Being a childhood star can mess with your mental and physical health, and I think that mental health should be focused on more, not only for child actors, but actors in general. But Nickelodeon and the entertainment industry as a whole didn't really step in to protect these children or help their mental well-being. In fact, a lot of them were pressured to stay silent, even when they were clearly being abused and mistreated. And that's really what this documentary shines light on. How the system failed these young actors and how their stories were swept under the rug for years.
We as parents were not allowed back on the set. We were graded by who guided all the kids to where they need to be. Jason looked like, and she said, I got an email from Jason. It was a picture of him naked, masturbating. And he said he had sent it to her because he wanted her to see.
Never any apology to Brandy herself for what happened. Everything got swept under the rug.
It's horrible to think about these children who were famous and loved by millions, yet behind the scenes, they were being treated horribly and being failed by the system.
I really am very uncomfortable with this guy, Brian Peck, always being around my son.
I should have been able to see, but as a kid, you have no clue. But my dad saw it a mile away.
This documentary is incredibly important, and not only does it give a voice to the child stars who have been silenced for so long, but it also forces us to reconsider how we view fame, success, and childhood stardom. It calls for us to look beyond the glamorized image of child stars and see them for who they truly are, kids, who deserve to be treated with respect and protection. It's also a powerful reminder that the entertainment industry and us consumers need to do better on how we treat these young performers. The well-being of children should come first regardless of what industry they're in, and the industries treating children like this should be held accountable for their actions.
It was wrong. It was wrong that I ever put anybody in that position. It was the wrong thing to do. I'd never do it today. I'm embarrassed that I did it then. I apologize to anybody that I ever put in that situation.